Hey guys. Okay, so we read the story How the Desert Tortoise Got Its Shell today, talking particularly about the genre of being a myth. A myth is actually a story that is written to explain something. So this one in particular is called a pourquoi, which means why in French. Pourquoi tales are myths told to explain certain things or events in nature. The tales are set very long ago, and they often begin with words such as long ago to show that the tale is very ancient. The animal characters act like people, and they can talk and think just like we do. As we read, we're going to notice the setting and how it compares and contrasts with other settings that we might have read about in our stories this week. So, comparing it to What About Me? Talking about the little boy who needed to go and find different things for different people because he wanted to gain knowledge. Now we're talking about the desert tortoise and how it gets its shell. So without further ado, let's start reading.
How the Desert Tortoise Got Its Shell by Linda Kennett. Long ago, Desert Tortoise was a small, green animal that lived in a burrow. There he hid from the heat of his enemy, Desert Sun. From time to time, Tortoise had to leave his burrow to find food and water. One day in early spring, Desert Tortoise knew he needed to go out and look for some food and water. As he crawled out, he saw that the desert was alive with beautiful wild flowers. Desert Tortoise especially liked the taste of the desert dandelion. One of the dandelions had fallen to the ground. Tortoise picked it up and carried it in his beak.
Okay, so he's already starting to talk like a human. He's already starting to express himself as if we were there, as if we were the person or the character in the story. So that's that personification, talking about something that isn't an actual person, having the characteristics of that, okay? All right, let's go ahead and keep reading.
As Desert Tortoise traveled on in the sand, he got hotter and hotter. This made him angry with Desert Sun. Finally, he stopped to rest in the shade of a big rock. He put his dandelion gently on the ground. Maybe it's time for my snack, he thought. Suddenly, Desert Bee swooped in. What are you doing with that flower? He buzzed. I think I will have it for lunch, replied the tortoise. Desert Sun has been chasing me all day, and I am tired and hungry. When someone bothers me, I just sting them with my stinger, boasted Desert Bee. If you will trade me your dandelion, I will give you my stinger. If you sting Desert Sun, he will leave you alone.
So again, talking about how the bee and the tortoise both are talking as if they were humans, okay? That's one of our characteristics of a pourquoi tale. All right, let's go ahead and keep reading.
Desert Tortoise was excited by this news. He quickly agreed to the trade. Desert Sun began to beat down on him again as he left the shade of the rock. You won't hurt me any more, yelled Tortoise. He threw the stinger at Desert Sun as hard as he could. The stinger went up in the air, but it didn't reach the sun and fell back to the ground only a few feet away. Desert Tortoise picked up the stinger and continued his walk. After a while, he met Desert Cactus. She was standing with her arms stretched wide. What are you doing with that long, sharp thing? Is it a cactus needle? Demanded Desert Cactus when the tortoise got closer. Desert Bee gave me his stinger to use to fight my enemy, Desert Sun, muttered Desert Tortoise. But it didn't work.
So it's asking us here, what things does Desert Cactus do that make it seem more like a person? Well, she's a cactus, right? She's like one of the swallows that we have here in Arizona. She's just standing there. She's got her little arms out here. She's like, hey, is that a cactus needle? So, as we know, cactus don't talk. But in this case, in this myth or legend, the Porquet tale, she does.
Of course it didn't work, laughed Desert Cactus. The best way to fight Desert Sun is with some cactus juice. If you drink my juice, you will be safe. I will trade you the juice for the stinger. This sounded like a good idea to Desert Tortoise. Desert Cactus gave him a cupful of her juice, and she placed the stinger among the other spines on her arm. Desert Tortoise took a small drink of the juice, and he felt better. Maybe Desert Cactus was right, he thought. Before he had much more to drink, Desert Tortoise came to a dry riverbed.
I wonder what's going to happen now.
What are you doing with that cactus juice? Asked Desert River. Desert Cactus gave it to me to fight my enemy, Desert Sun, answered the tortoise. I have a much better idea, Desert River said. I am dry now, but if you pour your juice into my riverbed, it will turn into water. You will be safe from Desert Sun with me. The thought of soaking in a river sounded very good to Desert Tortoise. He did as Desert River asked, and then jumped into the water. He sunk down to the bottom and cooled himself with the wet river mud.
Now, do we know that rivers don't talk? Yeah, we know that rivers don't talk. We also know that pouring one little cup of cactus juice is not going to make a river come back to life. However, in this myth, this is helping to explain a little bit of how he gets his shell. So we have to kind of embellish or kind of make things a little bit more impressive than they are. So here we go. See what happens next.
At last, he needed a breath of air, so he came out. He was so tired from all his adventures and still so covered in mud that he fell asleep on the banks of the river. As he slept, the mud began to dry. Soon the mud baked and cracked into a shell that covered the tortoise's body. Finally, Desert Tortoise awoke to find himself in a place where he could always hide from the sun. To this very day, the Desert Tortoise can be found safe inside his shell in the American Southwest and in Mexico.
Which is true. They actually do show up here in Arizona and the northern part of Mexico as well. All right, it says, what fact of nature about Desert Tortoise does this myth explain? And is the explanation believable? Well, it was trying to tell us, like our title told us in the beginning, how he got his shell. Now, it said that he fell asleep in the mud and that the sun had baked it and cracked it and turned into a shell. I'm not sure if that part is so believable, but it does make an interesting and entertaining story. But again, this is a myth trying to supposedly explain how the turtle got his shell. Okay? So talking about our last text, the boy from What About Me and the tortoise from How the Desert Tortoise Got Its Shell both get what they want in the end. But how did they each use cooperation to help them succeed? Well, ultimately, they had to barter. They had to trade with people or other animals or creatures to be able to get the things that they wanted. So the boy was trading with all the people in the village. The tortoise was trading with the other animals and objects in the desert in order to get what it is they wanted in the end. Okay? I'm going to assign you in your Savas Realize a quick little short journal telling me how Tortoise interacted with the other characters in order to get what he wanted. Okay, so make sure you check your Savas Realize for that. Other than that, you need to make sure that you practice your spelling words again. We were making sure that we also understand our compound words, having compound words, so two smaller words stuck together in one longer word. If you break those two pieces apart, we can tell what this one means, what that one means, and together they mean something entirely different, okay? Finally, I also want you to go ahead and reread the story of What About Me. The video was posted a couple of days ago, and that'll help you kind of review what that part of a story looks like what a fable looks like. Tomorrow we're actually going to be addressing that a little bit more and finishing up our rough draft and final draft of a sample fable, okay? So make sure that you get through those, and I will see you later. Bye, guys.